What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so another big story out there today is the retirement of longtime New York Giants quarterback Eli Manning. Eli Manning was drafted all the way back in 2004, I believe. Had been the starting quarterback of the Giants, I believe, pretty much his whole career, I believe. And one of the debates out there today is whether or not uh, Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer, and they're comparing him to obviously other quarterbacks of the era, and also, of course, his brother. Now, of course, I think it's almost unanimous that he wasn't as good as his brother, but he was pretty good. Now, is he a Hall of Famer? To me, um, if you took away his Super Bowl victories, I think that his career would be borderline. I mean, if you just looked at it without the glory of those postseason runs, and you look at his career, he's a 500 career record quarterback. I think it's 117 wins, 117 losses. But he did pass for 57,000 yards. His touchdown to interception ratio is decent, but not the greatest. Uh, he did have 366 career touchdowns. Uh, there was some inconsistency in his career. There's good and there's bad. He led the NFL in interceptions 3 times. But he did have a pretty good overall career completion percentage of 61%. Especially when you consider at the beginning of his career, the rules hadn't quite changed yet, which slanted everything toward the offense. That's why you got guys with completion percentage now in the upper 60s and into the 70s. Um, but without the Super Bowls, I think he's still a Hall of Famer, but it's very borderline. But you do have to take into account those 2 runs that he had in the playoffs, in the postseason, especially the first Super Bowl, which was against that undefeated Patriots team. That tends to be in people's minds when they think about Eli Manning. That tends to be in their minds when they think about that. Arguably, had the Patriots won that Super Bowl, you could make a great case that it'd been the greatest team of all time, and Eli thwarted that team. It wasn't just him. That was more of a, if I'm not mistaken, I think that that Giants team was more of a run defensive team. But Eli had his great moments with that team, and of course they beat him again in the Super Bowl. I think it was like 4 years later, I believe. So 2 of the 3 losses that Tom Brady has had in his career in the Super Bowl have been at the hands of Eli Manning. You can also bring up the fact that had Plaxico Burress not shot himself the year after they won the Super Bowl, maybe Eli and company would have won another Super Bowl because they were the best team in football in 2008 until Plaxico Burress shot himself. So maybe Eli, possibly, you don't know what would happen, but maybe if Plaxico Burress didn't shoot himself and end his career for the most part, maybe he would have won 3 Super Bowls. I don't know. But, I think his career passer rating is about 84, 85. Like I said, he's not one of those guys that's at the top echelon of quarterbacks. He's sort of, I agree with something that Max Kellerman said. Even at his best, Eli was like a top 10 quarterback, and often he was more of a top 15. Like he was in the upper average of quarterbacks. Never was he really in a discussion as an MVP candidate. He was a 4-time Pro Bowler. Um, I think he's a Hall of Famer, but he's not like a slam dunk type of case. But I think the 2 Super Bowls do luster his career. You know, I guess you could kind of put him in the same category as like a Joe Namath. Although some people will tell you Joe Namath was great talent, but and I try to take errors into account, man. But when I look at Joe Namath's numbers, they don't really blow you away. You know what I'm saying? And I understand the errors. Errors take into account defenses were much more uh, livelier, I guess, back then, and defenses could do more to hinder the offense. So that's why quarterback completion percentages were lower back then. But still, uh, even in the 60s, you had guys with quarterback completions like 54, 55, 60, 56%. And then you have Joe Namath in the late 60s through the 70s. He's only has a quarterback percentage of 50%. That, I don't know. Then he had more interceptions than touchdown passes. You know, but he's in the Hall of Fame because most people remember that great run that the New York Jets had against the then indomitable Baltimore Colts. And then of course another guy that I'll put Eli in the category with is Terry Bradshaw. You know, Terry Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But of course the Steelers were known more for their defense, the Iron Curtain defense of the mid to late 1970s. Terry Bradshaw was he like the best quarterback in the league at the time? No, but he was more than capable, he was more than capable, and that was enough to help to lead the Pittsburgh Steelers to Super Bowl victories at the Super Bowl victories at the time. But nobody would say that Terry Bradshaw was the best quarterback. I would put Eli more in that category. If anything, I would say he's more of a lower second tier at his best or upper third tier average, for his career. Now, the last few seasons of Eli's career, he hasn't been that good. So recency bias is going to put a lot of people, into doubt as to whether or not he's a Hall of Fame pick. But I think he is. Now, is he first ballot? Um, I don't. I wouldn't be. I wouldn't cry a river if he wasn't first ballot. But something would bother me if he were first ballot, but then Terrell Owens had to wait 3 years to get into the Hall of Fame. Then there's something wrong there. It shouldn't be about who the media doesn't like personally. It should be about who deserves to get there because of their overall production. Who deserves to be notarized, or who deserves to be um, celebrated and rewarded for their overall activity and dominance at their position in the NFL. But we see that in life. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes on your job, you'll see people who kiss ass and cozy up to those in position of authority, and sometimes even, you know, uh, have quid pro quo deals. You know what I'm saying? Have sex with people in position of authority, and they'll be, you know, compensated for that. Meanwhile, you're a superior worker. You do what you got to do, but you don't receive the same accolades as these other people because they curry favor. I'm not saying that, these athletes are fucking these reporters and shit like that, but if you take a reporter out to dinner and, you know, give them exclusive, interviews, or, give them some information off the record, or treat them nice or whatever and make them feel like a peer, then you're probably going to get praise that's a little bit more beneficial than the guy who tells the media to go fuck off. But it is what it is, though. But at the end of the day, Eli Manning, to me, is a Hall of Famer, but I wouldn't be pissed off if he doesn't get in on the first or maybe even the second ballot. It's also going to depend on who's in the overall selection with him. If it's a weak year, he might get in first ballot. If it's a year where it's a lot of people coming in at one time, I don't know how it works with the NFL. I'm not as privy or as knowledgeable with the NFL and how they select as opposed to the Major League Baseball or with the NBA, but we'll see. But tell me what you guys think. I want to add to one thing that Eli Manning was known for is being, I guess, clutch. It's something that you hear in the sports world now is a person having the clutch gene. And that's one thing that Eli was known for is being able to deliver in clutch situations for the New York Giants. I remember there were so many times in key games where he would throw a pass that you would think any other quarterback in the league, it would be an interception, but somehow it would go through a defender's hands and perfectly into the hands of a receiver that he's throwing to. And we saw that in the Super Bowl against the Patriots. It looked like Eli was down for the count, like he was going to be sacked, but somehow he got out of that situation and threw an improbable pass to, I think, what was it, David Tyree, that he caught on his fucking helmet. You know what I'm saying? So those are some of the Eli clutch moments. And then in the other Super Bowl, that incredible pass to, what was it, David Manningham? I think his first name was David. I know his last name was Manningham. Unbelievable catch going out of bounds and securing a victory against the Patriots again. So that's another thing he was known for in his career. But tell me what you guys think.